In 2010, Tom Brady, the GOAT, was the highest paid quarterback with an average per year or APY salary of $18 million. Just 14 years later, that figure has gone over 3 times to $55 million, where guys like Joe Burrow, Jordan Love, and Trevor Lawrence are making that amount of money for the exact same job and only doing it worse. What's the deal with that? Alright, welcome to What's the Deal with Josh, where throughout the series I want to evaluate the NFL and the stories we can learn from it analytically by looking at the contracts and how money has been dispersed and rearranged. Today we're going to be looking at the absolutely absurd quarterback market, how it has grown to these drastic measures, what it says about the NFL today, and looking forward how teams will be able to manage the quarterback salaries. Before I dive too deep into the weeds of all the numbers I'm about to get into, I want to make sure y'all understand what I mean by cap space. So cap space is the amount of money every NFL team, all 32 NFL teams, can spend on players. This season, that figure set at $255.4 million. This figure grows every year because the NFL gets more popular every year, so then more teams have more money to spend. So it figures that quarterback contracts will grow about the same rate, and the percent of a quarterback's APY contract to cap space should stay relatively fixed. Well, I pulled some data together, and that's not quite the case. Okay, so I compiled some data from overthecap.com to look at, from 2010 to 2024, how did that percent of a quarterback's average per year value change with cap space? Before we even dive into it, we should expect it to be at least relatively constant, give or take a few percentage points, because cap space grows, quarterback contract grows. But obviously, not quite the case. Really, until 2019, no significant spikes that are really of note. But in 2020, we see a huge peak. And then 2022, it just continues to grow. Now, of course, we see a dip because cap space did have a large growth, but 2020 and 2022 are going to be the biggest years I'm going to want to focus on for how we got to the quarterback market today. So what caused NFL teams to say, you know what, we're going to devote over 20%, over 1/5 of our cap space to one singular player, to one position, the quarterback position? Well, at 2020 is when we first saw APY of a quarterback's contract versus cap space go over 20%. And that's because of this guy named Patrick Mahomes. Well, it's going to be hard to disagree that Patrick Mahomes deserves all that money. And I don't have too much disagreement with that. And he held that title with $45 million APY from 2020 to 2021. But the 2022 offseason is when quarterback contracts permanently changed. In 2022, we had 4 big quarterback contracts go off. March 8th, 2022, Aaron Rodgers inked a deal for $50.2 APY, with Russell Wilson going to $49 APY. And if you remember that day, it was a crazy day. That was when Aaron Rodgers was in talks to get traded. He got his extension with the Packers, and the Broncos pivoted to Russell Wilson, which obviously didn't pan out. But those aren't even the main quarterback contracts of focus. I'm going to get into this later, but from 2010 to 2019, we saw this trend where only the best quarterbacks would get these largest contracts, and Aaron Rodgers was certainly up there as one of the best quarterbacks. But we had a really interesting contract on March 18th. Deshaun Watson, who had taken a year off, but of course the prior year had a phenomenal season, got traded from the Texans to the Browns and inked a fully guaranteed $46 million per year contract with the Browns. Also later that year, we had Kyler get a 46.1 contract. So not alone there in getting big money, but what's significant about this contract? I need to take a quick second to talk about what exactly I mean by a fully guaranteed contract. So usually a contract like Trevor Lawrence's $275 million contract, 55 APY. Well, he's only guaranteed $200 million of those $275 million. So there's still $75 million that's kind of up for grabs. Well, Deshaun Watson's fully guaranteed means that regardless of injury, play performance, whatever, the team has no out. They have no way to end that contract, and they owe Deshaun Watson the entirety of that $46 million per year, $230 million in total. Look, Deshaun Watson was a great quarterback, but it's kind of fair to say he was a one-year wonder. It was only his 2020 season where he really put up MVP numbers with 4,800 yards, 33 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. He also put up 400 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground. So MVP numbers here with his first 3 seasons being good, but not necessarily remarkable. So he had one season where he showed significant promise, but it's hard to say that this guy really warranted more money than Mahomes. But at the end of the day, he did get more money than Mahomes. So now if I'm an NFL quarterback with even some promise to my name, like Deshaun Watson's 1 year where he really showed MVP numbers, well, I'm going to say, hey, team, I deserve that Deshaun Watson deal. Well, teams cannot afford, and it's kind of stupid, to pay a quarterback a fully guaranteed contract because it leaves you no out. You have no room to get rid of that contract should they suck, and that's kind of what the Browns are seeing right now. So, quarterbacks are saying, look, I deserve that Deshaun Watson money. Well, teams don't want to play a fully guaranteed deal. So the only way they can do that is by paying more money APY than Deshaun Watson without the fully guaranteed. So that's kind of the workaround to make sure that their quarterbacks are adequately compensated to what the market value dictates without having to give a fully guaranteed contract. And this is exactly what we saw in the 2023 offseason. Look, Jalen Hurts, $51 million per year. Lamar, $52 million a year. Herbert, $52.5 million a year. And then Burrow, setting that top end that we still have at $55 million. None of these contracts are fully guaranteed. But in order to pay more than Watson, which the fair market would dictate, because these guys are better than Watson, or at least have shown more promise, well, I got to give you more money. Because I can't justify giving you that fully guaranteed deal. So I'll give you more money, technically more money, but at least it gives me somewhat of an out should I need to work around your contract. Also in 2023, Daniel Jones got $40 million, so. And not even 2023, going to 2024, Jared Goff, Tua, Lawrence, Love, they all got $50+ million contracts. And look, these are decent quarterbacks, but not to be Cam Newton, but are these guys game managers? At least Goff and Tua, they have remarkable talent around them, but they've never really shown a great individual effort, or I can't really recall a game where these guys took over and were that Mahomes or truly that top market guy. Lawrence has shown promise, but he's never really been the quarterback when he came out of college. He looked like football Jesus coming out of Clemson, and that's not what we've seen with him with the Jaguars. And Jordan Love, he played phenomenal last year for 8 games. He's a hell of a talent, and I do think he could be a great quarterback. But him getting $55 million APY right up there at the top with any player, highest paid APY ever, what are we doing? So, with these guys getting these huge contracts, is the quarterback market cooked? Before I dive into explaining whether or not the quarterback market is utterly ruined, we need to first understand what rookie deals look like. When you get drafted, whether that's first round to 7th round, you are going to sign a deal that is relatively cheap by market standards. Of course, first round picks having more money, 7th round picks having significantly less money. That lasts for 4 years. So you sign that contract, you're under team control for 4 years. After your 3rd season, you are then eligible for an extension. But for first round picks, they have what's called a first round option. I think that's the name of it. Same difference. Where you are technically under that team control for 5 years. 4 years of the rookie deal, and then a 5th year should the team choose to keep you around. So, 5 years if you are a first round pick. So, let's talk about former first round pick, richest man in football, Trevor Lawrence. First round pick, so under team control for 5 years. Well, after his 3rd year, that's when he signed this 5-year, $275 million extension. So he still had 2 years of that rookie contract remaining, worth about $40 million. So yes, Trevor Lawrence did sign a 55 APY, but it's really more of a 7-year, $310 million contract because again, he had $40 million remaining on that rookie deal. So we can kind of look at the breakdown again, Over the Cap, my favorite website in the whole wide world, of what this exactly looks like. So this upcoming year, again, he just signed a $55 million contract, but he's only getting paid $15 million by cap hit. Again, we don't see him hit over $55 million until 2029. So, not truth that it's a $55 million APY. Really what it is a $44 million roughly contract over 7 years. But, as I mentioned earlier, it's only $200 million in guarantees. This is not a fully guaranteed deal like the Deshaun Watson contract. So, after this season, in 2029, the Jacksonville Jaguars have a potential out where they could cut him, trade him, get rid of him, whatever. Right? So if Lawrence only continues to be an okay quarterback and they choose to pay off all the guarantees and not worried about the guaranteed money, because after this point, this all sums to $200 million, which was the guaranteed part. It's really only a 6-year, about $36 million per year contract. So it's definitely a lot more palatable than a $55 million APY, as you would expect. But also note, void right here. So this is a really smart thing that teams will do, but it can go wrong. That might be a future video, where you add years to a contract. So at this point, let's say 2031, Trevor Lawrence would not be a Jaguar, but the team would still owe him $21 million against the cap. So you're essentially paying him to not be there, but you're paying him off on the back end to take care of that money and to make him what his quarterback market pay should be. So is the quarterback market ruined? It's not helping the case. Deshaun Watson definitely broke the quarterback market by being a largely mediocre quarterback, with the exception of one season, to become higher paid than Mahomes, thus warranting all these other quarterbacks with promise to then get paid higher than him. So to completely reset the deal, and because of that fully guaranteed component, now teams have to give huge money to be able to spread it around and keep quarterbacks happy for their market value without having to give up all those guarantees. But moreover than just ruining the quarterback market by evaluation of a quarterback contract, there's kind of an unspoken rule, and when I looked through the data in 2010 to 2019, look, the highest paid quarterbacks in order were Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, Andrew Luck, Matthew Stafford, Russell Wilson. All at that point in their careers, when they signed these contracts, these guys were surefire Hall of Famers. And now we're making guys like Trevor Lawrence the highest paid quarterback. And I'm not trying to diss him, but at this point in his career, I can't really say he is a Hall of Famer. So look, teams are smart. They'll be able to figure out how to balance this money. But Deshaun Watson definitely did not help. You could even say he raped the market. So thank you so much for watching. I'm a huge football fan, and I like being able to tell stories about football, especially by looking through the numbers of how we got to these points with the NFL market, or just what these contracts tell us about the league as a whole. Looking forward, I'm going to make some videos on either how the Browns pulled off the Watson deal. They had to do some interesting moves behind how rich the owners were to have the cash on hand to be able to pay Watson. And how that's kind of led to some of the other moves, whether that's the Jerry Jeudy move and even potentially getting Ayuk. Going along with Ayuk, how can the 49ers afford to pay Brock Purdy? Because look, he might be demanding $60 million a year. Also, as I mentioned with his rookie deal, he's not even going to make $1 million in salary. So they probably want to sign him soon, be able to shuffle that money around, kind of like what you saw with Lawrence. And I even want to talk about void years gone wrong. I'm a Saints fan, but boy, have we messed up with that. So those are kind of 3 ideas I want to talk about in future videos. If you watched this and enjoyed, let me know in the comments what you think about that. But really, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you.